Thank you.
Forgot to do that.
Whoops. We got it. Jason will yell at us. Oh, well, too bad.
Oh, we only missed a minute.
Yeah, that's okay. Like I said, we're talking about bridges, and the northernmost bridge is the Harrion Bridge. This is the first bridge of a series of bridges over the Jordan River. It sits at the confluence of the Yarmouk and Jordan rivers. Naharayim means two rivers. It was the site of Kibbutz Gesher, which moved after the Israel War of Independence in 1948. There are three impressive ancient bridges at the site: a Roman bridge, a Turkish bridge, and a British bridge. Everybody built on top of everybody else. There's an old train bridge that runs over the ruins of the Roman bridge. So, everybody built on top because, everybody wanted to make it, their idea was that they were making it better. Okay, that's the bridge of Naharayim. That's the old train bridge. And
They can't see where you're pointing.
they don't know where I'm pointing. That's okay.
Say top corner.
Top corner, that's right. You want to leave the session?
No.
I just like to take this moment to say I heart Sandy.
More bridges! Yay!
I love bridges too.
Bridges are fun. They get you to different places, sometimes even different states. Of course, you don't have to go across a bridge to get from Arizona to California. You just have to dump all your fruit.
I've never had to do that.
Yeah, well, we've had to eat apples quickly, but that's a totally different story. This is the Sheikh Hussein Bridge border crossing at Jordan. The Aqaba border crossing to Jordan. That's the Aqaba border crossing to Jordan and north of Eilat. The reason that we got that up will be evident when I finish this. The Sheikh Hussein Bridge border crossing between Israel and Jordan is just outside the Israel city of Beit Shan, which I believe we went over when we were doing the north. Given its northern proximity, this border serves as an ideal passage from Israel to Petra. However, nothing's ever that easy in the Middle East. Unless you have a prearranged travel plans or you're part of a group, it is not the recommended border crossing. It is actually the least convenient choice of crossing from Israel to Jordan and takes a long amount of time and is the most expensive option. The better option for going to Petra is a tour that's arranged sort of at the border and booked in a lot, and the crossing of the border is much further south at the Aqaba crossing, which is slightly north of Eilat on the Jordanian border. My kids did that with their dad. They went to Petra. And, they had to basically bribe the border guards and pay for the Jordanian tour guide when they got over there. So I have not done it. I would love to go to Petra, but I have no real interest in going to Jordan, so I left that to my kids. We're going back to Beit Shan. Yeah. Just because I happen to like Beit Shan, and was one of the places that I went in. I'm not sure if it was my 1970s trip or my trip with my rabbi from New Jersey, but we ended up in Beit Shan. And because I like rocks and because I like ruins, Beit Shan got me. It's a city near the border of Jordan, and it houses the Beit Shan National Park with spectacular ruins of the glory that was the Roman and Byzantine city of Beijing. There is a reconstructed 2nd century CE Roman theater, a Byzantine bathhouse, a reconstructed cardo or street, and the Sigma and Tyche mosaic depicting Tyche, the pagan goddess of the city's fortune, and the ruins of a Roman temple. Sigma and Tyche mosaic and the Roman cardo are being shown. No, we don't have the picture of Sigma. Oh, where did it go? We just have the Roman bathhouse,
Should we do
the
more?
Byzantine bathhouse. Oh,
here we go.
yay! There's a Beijing mosaic of Tyche. And I believe it's on a floor, although I would have put it on a wall. I don't know why they put it on a floor. Maybe it was easier to construct. Okay. Ah. Welcome to Kfar Rotim, a kibbutz founded on its present site in 1938 as one of the tower and stockade kibbutzim. There were a bunch of wilderness kibbutzim at the time that were constructed to keep the members safe. The original members were all Olim, immigrants to Palestine, which it was in 38, mostly from the members of Noach HaOved movement in Germany and Austria. Because of the smallness of the group, there were 80 pioneers joined with another group from the Ben Nativ group in 1942, with most of this new group coming from Czechoslovakia. And they had mostly come to Israel as illegal immigrants on the ships that brought people in. If you don't remember the illegal ships, go back and see Exodus again or read the book again. The kibbutz was named, a lot of these kibbutzim are named for people. This was named for Dr. Arthur Rotim, then head of the Jewish Agency Settlement Department, who supported the initiative of the young pioneers to establish a kibbutz in the area, which at the time was constructed. The kibbutz was considered a distant and dangerous area. The members of the kibbutz searched for a means of livelihood by conducting experiments in agriculture, by cultivating the land and creating minimal conditions for survival in the area of malaria swamps, not too friendly Bedouin neighbors, and practically no roads. You know how hard it is to get stuff in to construct stuff with no roads? Go back, LA history back to the beginning of last century, and someone will tell you about how to do that with no roads. Small steps were taken in educating the children and absorbing immigrant youth. During the days of World War II, almost all of the members were cut off from any communication with their families in Germany, which you can imagine was terribly hard because they knew something was going on and they couldn't get information. After the War of Independence in 1948, the kibbutz gained impetus and began to establish their agricultural branches, some of which still exist today and are the basis of the kibbutz economy. These include fish farming, ornamental fish breeding. I'm not exactly sure what ornamental fish are, but they must be pretty. Dairy farming, a chicken farm, a plantation of date trees, groves, and ripe grapefruit, plus field crops of wheat and corn. In addition, in 1978, a factory, Berkat, for plastic goods was established. Now you see why I was eating so much grapefruit. I mean, this kibbutz itself stimulated me to eat more grapefruit, and that got me going on the rest of the project. From August 1967 until August 1970, the valley was subjected to a war of attrition. The kibbutz was constantly shelled from across the Jordan River by Palestinian militants who laid mines and harassed the kibbutz with small arms fire. For 3 years, these kids had to sleep in crowded bomb shelters. During these years, there were 102 incidents, 54 that involved the kibbutz, including 2 casualties and property damage. In September 1970, King Hussein clamped down on the militants, and most attempts to infiltrate were thwarted by army patrols with cooperation from the Jordanian government. Hussein really didn't like the Palestinians either, because he was afraid that they were trying to kill him off. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that Hussein was a helicopter pilot and flew his own helicopter because he was a little paranoid. Don't blame him. In 1994, Israel signed the historic peace treaty with Jordan. Since then, the area has had a peaceful atmosphere and become completely safe, although there is still a need to guard the border closely. Although the border is only 5 kilometers from the kibbutz, there appear to be signs of cooperation with the Jordanian neighbors in various spheres. The area around Rotim is also a bird watching location due to the important bird migration flyways between Europe and Africa. A bird ringing station is also located there. I like the birds, they're cute. Everybody like the birds? The Levant sparrowhawk's migration, as well as that of other birds through this area of Israel. I think those are storks. There's also a stork migration up in that area. So anyway, welcome to the kibbutz and welcome to the bird migration area. I guess the birds decided to settle down for a couple of minutes before they go further south or west. Yay. A little further south is Tirat Tzvi, or Tzvi's Castle, a religious kibbutz just 10 kilometers south of Beijing. It was named after, hold on a second. It's going to take me a couple of seconds. Rabbi Tzvi Hirsch Kauscher. He lived from 1795 to 1874. One of the founders of the Zionist movement and a leader of the Hovevei Tzion. The Tira in Tirat Tzvi refers to a 2-story mud structure on the kibbutz operates. The kibbutz also operates a meat processing factory, Tiv, which sells products locally and abroad from Tirat Tzvi, is also the largest date palm grower in Israel, with 18,000 trees. Working with scientists from the Volcani Institute, Tirat Tzvi developed a method for preserving the palm fronds for several months, allowing them to be harvested in the spring and sold in the fall for, anybody have a guess? For the holiday of Sukkot. In 2009, they produced 70,000 lulavim. That's a whole bunch of lulavim. So if you get a lulav from Israel, there's a chance that they were grown at Tirat Tzvi.
Mhm.
Ah, ooh, ouch. Okay. The next place we're going to visit is Mehola or Abel Mehola, and it's mentioned frequently in the Bible and is recognized as the birthplace of the prophet Elisha. Adriel the Meholatite, son-in-law of King Saul, was probably named after Abel Mehola, reference found in the book of Samuel. So that is Mehola. And we're going to go further. Okay. Oh my. The Israeli settlement of Rotim, Berkat Hayaldin, sits in the West Bank and is located southwest of Shtemot Mehola. Sister town to Mehola. There are two towns, one Shtemot Mehola and Mehola. In 2019, Berkat Hayaldin had a population of 228, huge place. And you can see how isolated it is. Most of the West Bank looks a lot like this. You drive and you drive and you drive, and there is absolutely nothing. I remember driving through the West Bank with my ex and my kids, and naturally, like most boys, they did not have to go to the bathroom before we left in the middle of the West Bank. And something looking sort of like this, all three of them had to. So we pulled off on the side of the road and they got out of the car and made their contribution. Moshav Argaman, with a huge population of 166, is further south in the eastern part of Israel, Kedma. Argaman is literally translated as crimson, and it's an Israeli settlement organized as a moshav in the West Bank. Many settlements on the West Bank were established or grew after the Six-Day War in 1967 to help maintain the area of the West Bank as an Israeli territory. And this place, although it's very pretty, has a very small population of 166 people. Just a reminder, a moshav, people are allowed to own things, and a kibbutz they generally don't own. But moshavim also do a lot of collective stuff. It's good to be together in an area because you have more protection that way. This is Masuah. The village was established in 1969 as a Nachal settlement. Nachal is part of Israeli Defense Forces and was converted to a civilian moshav by Ha'oved Hatzion Garin. A Garin's a group of settlers 5 years later. According to ARIJ, confiscated land from a Palestinian village of Al-Jafik was done in order to construct Masuah or Masuah. 4 kilometers southwest of Masuah is the Sartana Nature Reserve, named in tribute of the mountain from which in times of the Mishnah, Jews would relay signals via torch to indicate the beginning of a new month. So that's the kibbutz, and that's the area around it, and that's the nature reserve. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, more bridges. The Prince Mohammed or Damier Bridge, or from it used to go from Nablus to Amman. Nablus is in the middle of the West Bank, and we will talk about it next week. The Adam Damier Bridge. This bridge is significant historically in the movement for Israeli independence. It overlooks the Jordan River about 45 kilometers south of Besan, and was on the leading road from Nablus in the middle of the West Bank to Amman. The bridge is located in the center of an Arab area with a few Bedouin encampments nearby. The bridge was guarded by 2 Arab watchmen, a British police station, and it was bombed by a Palmach operation group that resorted to violence as part of the Jewish resistance movement before Israel gained its independence in 1948. The bridge was blown up on June 16th to 17th, 1946, in ongoing actions to gain an independent state of Israel, probably done by Beitar or one of the other more radical groups working towards independence. However, it did work. And that's an old picture of what it looked like. Okay, we're going to go to Yafit. It's another Israeli settlement in the Jordan River Valley, just north of Jerusalem. It was founded in the 1980s and has a population of just over 100 people, possibly 202.
Depends on where you Google.
Depends on where you Google. Yeah, it originally had like 202, and then a lot of people left. There were a lot of drive-by shootings early on, so many people left because they just didn't feel safe. And it's part of the Moshav Shitufi movement. There are a whole bunch of different Moshav movements, each having different rules. Now we're going to Ma'ale Ephraim, which is a secular Israeli settlement in the West Bank along the eastern slopes of the Samarian Mountains. It was founded in 1976 and named after the biblical tribe of Ephraim, one of Joseph's sons. According to the ARU, in 1970, Israel retook the land from Jordanians, which was stolen supposedly by Jewish landowners during the War for Independence, to build Ma'ale Ephraim. So you can see a pattern here that there's a lot of dispute over these settlements in the West Bank, the Israeli settlements, because nobody's really sure of how the land was taken and what was done. And we'll continue that theme next week. It raises a lot of unrest between the Palestinian Muslims and the Jewish settlers. And it's very hard to find a resolution. although some Moshavim and Kibbutzim had worked together to do some projects. Okay, we're up to Petzael, which is an Israeli moshav in the West Bank. It was established in 1970 by former soldiers and is 34.5 kilometers from the Green Line, the established borderline between the West Bank and pre-67 borders. In 2019, it had a population of 304. It is named for Fa'asael, the older brother of Herod the Great, the guy who started building Masada. There was a city nearby that was named for Herod's brother in ancient times. The settlement's income comes mostly from agriculture. In 2013, the settlement's lands were used for date palms, vineyards, and vegetables, mostly peppers. I did not know that they grew a whole bunch of peppers in Israel. I think they're sweet peppers. And flowers. Most of the agricultural output is for export. Some of the electricity in the area is produced by solar panels, and some of the residents also use solar panels for their personal use. So this is a very forward-thinking moshav. They're actually using solar panels, or some of the people are. Gilgal. We are now at Gilgal. And that's the name of one or more places in the Bible, in particular in the book of Joshua, where the Israelites encamped after crossing the Jordan River. The Hebrew term Gilgal most likely means a circle of stones, and you can see a circle of stones there. It is an ancient sacred site on which a circle of large stones was erected. If you like archaeology, this might be a short stop on your itinerary. Some people compare it to Stonehenge in its building of something that might have been a site for religious purposes. Okay. By the way, if one has not figured it out yet, Sandy Wexler likes rocks and archaeological digs. I'm pretty sure you all figured that out. All right, the next place we're going to.
Which is quite fine, Sandy. I'm very glad that you do like those.
Yeah, I mean, every place I've gone, I've come back with a pocket full of rocks, including places in Israel. And I was on a dig, so that even enhanced it even more. And I have two friends now who are archaeologists, one in New Jersey and one out here in Arizona. Tend to hang out with people who like things that are very old. So maybe that's why Joe's hanging out with me.
That's right.
Next place we're going to is Naomi, which was established as a settlement on the West Bank in 1982. It was originally named for Naama due to its proximity to the Palestinian village of Naweima, before being renamed for the biblical figure Naomi. It has a small population of 165, and obviously it's one of those settlements that's keeping a Jewish presence in the West Bank. Has a population that I could pull up of 165. Who knows how many of those are children? Yay, more bridges, yay, great. This is one of my favorites. The Allenby Bridge border crossing since the 1994 Israel-Jordan Peace Treaty. The Allenby Bridge terminal is operated by the Israel Airports Authority. It serves as a border crossing between the west and east banks of the Jordan River. It is also known officially in Jordan as the King Hussein Bridge, and also called the Al-Kavmeh Bridge by Palestinian Arabs. You'll see that a lot of places in Israel, especially West Bank, have two separate names, one by either Jordanians or Palestinians and one by the Israelis. Somehow everybody seems to find their way around. I'm not sure how. It is near the city of Jericho and connects the West Bank to Jordan. The bridge is currently the sole designated exit entry point for West Bank Palestinians traveling abroad. Being 381 meters, 1,250 feet below sea level, it is the lowest fixed water crossing in the world. The history of the bridge is for another class, but it was named for the British general Edmund Allenby, who built a bridge there over the Ottoman bridge that had been there at one time. Allenby built the bridge in 1918. Like I said, the British rebuilt a lot of Turkish bridges. I guess they didn't trust their architectural skills, and besides that, they just beat them. So, you know, why not build over there? The current bridge is only for use by Palestinians crossing to Jordan or back to the West Bank. Israelis need to use other entryways into the West Bank for Jordan. I guess they felt that there needed to be a way that the Palestinians felt relatively safe crossing over and back and weren't stopped as frequently as they're stopped in the other bridge crossings. So this was the compromise, I would guess. Oh, yeah. Okay. Where is Jericho? Is this the correct slide?
Oh, this was, we were looking for Abu Shatim, weren't we?
Abu Shatim. Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's why we put the map in.
Oh, yeah. Not sure why we're looking for Abu Shatim.
No? Oh, how about Shechem?
No, we're not doing Shechem's next week. We have.
Well, we put this map in for a reason, so.
Oh,
everybody look at
because
the map.
there's Jericho right in the middle.
Oh, Jericho.
We're doing Jericho. Oh, all right. Whoops. Let me find my place. Sorry. I want to end tonight's tour with Jericho. Hold on a sec. We're going to do a lot with Jericho. Obviously, the town of Jericho, or Ariha, is Arabic, is one of the oldest inhabited towns in the world, dating back to more than 10,000 BCE. Jericho sits at about 780 feet below sea level, making it the world's lowest inhabited cities. According to some research, it is the oldest city in the world to still be inhabited. Biblically, Jericho is known for its battle with Joshua, when the Israelites were first coming back to the land of Canaan after 40 years in the Sinai desert. If you don't remember, they surrounded the city, they sent spies in, they sounded their horns, and the city walls came tumbling down. But obviously, there's still a city of Jericho. So how does that happen? I guess the whole city didn't come tumbling down. The modern city is an Arab Palestinian town under the Palestinian Authority jurisdiction. We'll get into more of this next week as we go down through the West Bank. But the Israeli government has, due to a couple of peace accords, allowed the Palestinians to run a lot of their cities and towns, a lot of the day-to-day workings. So a lot of the cities, although still in Israel, are run by the Palestinian Authority and under their jurisdiction. On our trips to Israel, we, meaning Joe and I and my ex-husband and I and the group that I went with from my synagogue, decided not to stop in Jericho, although on the correct guided tour, I am sure it would be a fascinating place to go.
Here's ancient, and we also have a slide with modern.
Yeah, there's ancient Jericho and modern Jericho. Jericho is also important historically, culturally, and politically as a center located northwest of the Dead Sea. If one looks up Jericho on a Palestinian site, mention will be made of refugee camps and the physical consequences of the ongoing Israel-Palestinian conflict. That's not to say that Jericho is not a popular tourist place to visit because of its open city center and north of the city proper, the Tel Es Sultan, the agreed upon original settlement mound. You can,
What, you want to go back?
yeah, go back a second. Original settlement mound, original town of Jericho. Now we can go to the next one.
Okay.
Thanks, Lynn. There is also an archaeological site, which is the Monastery of the Temptation, still found there. It's a Greek Orthodox site, an ancient site run by Palestinians, but still owned by the Greek Orthodox Church of Jerusalem. Current day Jericho's downtown area has street cafes almost identical to a street cafe anywhere else in Israel. Just a few words.
You want to stop the share?
Yes, stop the you can stop the share. Just a few words about next week. Next week, we will be going north to south in the middle of Israel, which means that we will be going into the West Bank area. It was a very hard, and I'm still doing some of it. It was a very hard lesson to prepare because, as we've seen tonight, a lot of the West Bank is, even though it's under Israel's control, it is run by the Palestinian Authority for its day-to-day operations. And there have been a lot of people who are not happy with that situation. There have been a lot of riots and people killed on both sides. And it's a tough topic. What I'm trying to do next week, and be prepared, is find the interesting and fun things in the West Bank, and then going down around Jerusalem once more to areas that were not Israel at one point, Modin and Beit Shemesh in particular, and hoping to find some interesting and fun things that represent that area, that don't represent the conflict or can represent Israeli and Muslim Arabs and Christians working together. That's my goal for next week. So I'm hoping that everybody will show up and we have a good time. Any questions?